Hello everyone and welcome back to the GeekWave. This is the low budget show. It's the show so low. There's no budget. It has no budget. And we're back with a retrospective because in the past couple of weeks, last month actually, I think it was last month, one of the most, I would say, celebrated modern comic books just came to an end in a beautiful, spectacular way. And I wanted to talk about it. I didn't do reviews for the book, so it's like, let's just look back on these 50 issues with pride and fun and have a good time. And that's what we're going to do. You know, we're going to be talking Hulk, which I don't really talk a lot of Hulk on the channel. So talking Hulk's going to be fun. But of course, even before we talk Hulk, we do have to get into a couple pieces of news here because we're entering a weird time. You know, we're entering the new year, which means a lot of things are going to be getting trailers, which means a lot of things are going to be starting to drop where we just seen more news. And this is the week before the no DC fandom happened, before the Disney big special, Disney Plus special day or whatever, Disney Plus day, whatever happens. You guys know the Disney Plus day, which we will be talking about next week. If there's a lot of reveals, that'll probably be half the video for next week. But before that, we have a couple pieces of news with a bunch of crap. Crap was wrong to say. A bunch of stuff that is either going to excite you or disinterest you. And personally, it doesn't interest me that much. So, our first piece of news I do want to talk about is the official confirmation that the week after Dune was released, we're getting Dune 2 coming to cinemas in 2023. So Denis Villeneuve has been very vocal on his, we're going to be doing a sequel. I've envisioned a trilogy. We're making a trilogy. Bunch of stuff, guys. It's great. Dune is cool. It's successful. People like it. Good for you. I liked Dune. It's good. I just don't really, I'm not excited for a sequel because he's going to ride the worm. That's literally all they're going to do in the sequel that's worth anything, because I think the rest of it's pretty obvious. So, of course they're doing it. Why wouldn't they do it? It'd be wrong of them not to do it at this point. So I'm not excited. I'm just like, yeah, do Dune 2. I mean, what else would you do? What else would you do? There's no way they're going to do the rest of the books. They're just going to do this first one because it's the only one that makes sense. The rest of it's insanity. So, what else, honestly? So, yeah, go ahead, do it. I don't care. I think that's cool. And then literally the rest of the news we are going to be talking about this week is a bunch of trailers for upcoming stuff, starting with the trailer for Lightyear, that Buzz Lightyear movie. Not about the toy, but about the movie or the guy that the toy is based on. I think it's the movie. And I'm going to take a guess that we're going to have an opening scene where there's some kids about to see the Lightyear movie, and then we're just going to watch the Lightyear movie. Kind of like how the SpongeBob SquarePants movie started, where all these pirates were breaking into a theater to go watch it. I think that's how Lightyear's going to go. But the trailer itself, it's cool. I was excited for this because I'm like, give me some high concept science fiction in an animated format, just your classic Flash Gordon looking stuff. This does unfortunately look a little too modern in terms of what they're doing with its aerospace and space station and stuff. I hope it's more like adventuring in space with colorful characters as opposed to the right stuff, which I'm okay with either. I like both those concepts, but it's Buzz Lightyear. He's got a laser mounted to his wrist. He's got wings on the back of his toy. You want him to kind of go around and have fun. I also hope this isn't how we get things on the toy where it's and this is where the laser comes from and this is where the wings come from. And just make a cool movie about a guy in space, Could be fun. A lot of people making memes about the way Lightyear looks. And yeah, he looks... Yeah, I get the memes. He looks silly. But it's fine. It's not dumb. It's just, okay, cool. Good for you, man. Buzz Lightyear, the movie. They should do one with Woody. Because imagine a really good animated Western that's not Rango. It would be cool. It would be so cool to see. And with that trailer out of the way, we jump back into the world of Disney because the Book of Boba Fett got a trailer released. And Yeah, man, I'm excited for the Book of Boba Fett. I think this is a great idea. I've wanted to see this for a long time, and yes, I can confirm today in this video we will be doing weekly reviews for the Book of Boba Fett. I'm super excited to talk about it. Looks fun. I'm not going to say it blew me away, because I don't think it did. Like, this trailer it kind of showed us what Tamara Morrison's going to do and what Ming-Na Wen's going to do. There's going to be a bunch of like, hey, let's not fight here, babes. Let's just get in. We'll figure out Tatooine and just have fun there. I have no doubt we'll see some colorful characters from the original trilogy returning. Just people that we've seen before on Mos Eisley, on Tatooine. I have no doubt about that. We could even see a clone. Would we? Maybe. This one doesn't tie in to like the big Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic thing. So it could be very standalone. But it's still cool, and I think that's very exciting to see. So the Book of Boba Fett reviews coming weekly starting December 29th, which is going to be very fun. Very excited to talk about that show. Also, trailer for Morbius, the living vampire. That's right, Jared Leto, everyone's favorite pervert, sexual predator, cult leader, lunatic, is spearheading a movie about Morbius, the living vampire. I'm losing my mind. I think we're all collectively losing our minds because we're letting this happen. We are letting this exist. Why are we doing that, man? Like, why? Whatever. Man, just really, Morbius? Whatever. And then this trailer doesn't even know what it wants to be. It's like, is it in the Amazing Spider-Man universe? Is it in the Raimi universe? Is it in the MCU? It's got a little bit of everything. It's got like, so it's like they're using some kind of bat radar. Yeah, it's sonar, dipshit. What do you think it would be? It's like this, just say it's, sonar. Like, what is wrong with you? It looks so stupid and so uninspired and so cliched and dumb. I honestly can't wait to talk about it because I think it's going to be the worst thing we've seen in a long time. There's just no way this can be special because it's Jared Leto. Does anybody want to see this guy succeed? Is Michael Morbius a character anybody gives a shit about? Because it just doesn't seem like it. So the fact that this exists at all is just a statement to how dumb it is, and I cannot believe it exists. Honestly, it just blows my mind that this is a thing that we have to talk about, that has to exist. Because what is it? My goodness. And we have another trailer to talk about, and this one I am sure to get a lot of flack for. I'm pretty sure. So we got our first look at Stranger Things Season 4. And I'll be honest with you guys, I did not watch the last couple seasons of Stranger Things. It is a show, and I want to talk about in some big way. I'll probably do a retrospective later on when it comes to that show. But this season, who is excited? Who is still watching Stranger Things? Because I don't know anybody who is actively pursuing this show. It's the first big blow up that Netflix ever had where it became the biggest thing in the world. And then it never caught that again. It just slowly petered away. And it's relevant for a minute and then it's not relevant ever again. And I just don't think another season of that matters. This one looks like Elle's writing a postcard to Mike and she's like, look at all the fun I'm having in school. Nobody likes me because I'm different. And I can't wait to see you on spring break, and everything's just going to go similar beats to literally every other movie in this freaking universe. It's just going to be like, I'm an outsider. This guy accepts me. Monsters come to this place. Hopper not dead, maybe. Uh-oh, Steve's silly haircut. Uh-oh, Maya Hawke is here. Uh-oh, Charlie or Chuck or whatever his name is smoking, Will's brother. Oh, man. Who cares? Who cares? Like, what is it? Oh, man. Just so much stuff like this that doesn't need to exist, and it exists, and it just goes nowhere and does nothing special. that kind of sucks because we could do a lot of fun stuff with Stranger Things if it was just relevant enough to even play with it. But I don't think it's relevant anymore. I don't. I just think it's cliched and driven, and nobody is truly excited for a Stranger Things continuation. So let this be the last season. I'll do a retrospective when it's all done, and then nobody in their right minds will ever talk about Stranger Things again until we reboot it and set in the 90s when all the kids are older and they can kiss and touch and, Stranger Things Season 4. Get excited, folks. It's ending soon, and we can all collectively move on with our lives. And that does it for the news for this week. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll collectively move on with our lives and talk about a modern masterpiece in the realm of the comic book. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. So, Immortal Hulk has come to an end. This book started in, 2016? I think. Has it been that long? Man, because it's been at least freaking 4 years, right? And I read it from the beginning. I was like, I like Hulk enough. He's a character I've enjoyed, but there's never really been that, go-to Hulk run that I think in modern stories I've gravitated towards. It's like Peter David did some cool stuff back in the day. Of course, the original stuff was really fun. World War Hulk was, I think, the last big Hulk thing that people liked. And since then, the character has just pretty much existed nebulously because, the MCU, because who's reading a Hulk comic. So I believe, I might be mistaken, because I don't remember all the freaking context when it comes to how somebody started before the book came out. I believe it was Civil War 2 that Hawkeye killed Bruce, and then we got this? Or was it No Surrender or something? Look, Bruce Banner was killed in an Avengers-related comic book. Then the brilliant mind of Al Ewing said, guys, don't worry, I'm going to bring him back, and I have a great pitch to do it. So, before we get into this, I want to give some quick thoughts on the comic book, because I honestly think this is one of the greatest works of fiction Marvel has put out in, I think, the past 20 years. Immortal Hulk is probably the closest a modern comic book has come to capturing the feel of an Alan Moore book. And that's weird to say. This book has the makings of an Alan Moore, of a Grant Morrison, of a Neil Gaiman, where it's just taking a concept that we are familiar with and exploring something so poetic with its inception that it almost just destroys you. This is such a good book. It feels like a Vertigo comic. It feels like something you would hand to a kid, or not even a kid, like a teenager in that era where they're like, comics are for kids. I want to read something grown up. You'd be like, oh, you read Sandman. Oh, you read Preacher. Oh, you read Immortal Hulk. That's what this book feels like. And there's just something very special about that being what Hulk is. So I will say, before this book came out, I was not too familiar with Al Ewing. Of course, this is kind of the thing that propped him up to be a name at Marvel. I was never too familiar with his work. Same with Joe Bennett. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with talking about Joe Bennett just because there's a lot of stuff going on with him right now. He's literally lost his contract with Marvel and he's not going to be working with them anymore. Whether or not those are intentional things he did in these books or said some bad shit, I don't want to get into. But there's just something special about putting these two together. Love it or hate it, Al Ewing and Joe Bennett, when they came together and just did this book, it was just, I think, like a Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, where it's just like, this is what you do to get the book where it needs to be. It's beautiful. It is intense. It is just poetic and frightening and just so bloody amazing. The concepts that this book explores, the way it plays with itself, the way it talks about itself. There is really nothing like Immortal Hulk. And I won't say like maybe Donny Cates will do something original with his Hulk run starting very soon. You can't capture this magic again. This is just taking a concept for a character and saying, He's dead. He can come back to life. We're turning this back into a body horror dysmorphia book about this broken man and all the problems he has dealt with over time. And that, to me, is something that is rare to see. Just giving it this prestigious format in a Marvel comic is so amazing. So this story ran for 50 issues, and it actually comes together in a beautiful way. One of the things I really like about this book is how well paced it is. So it starts off very small. We're following this news reporter seeing the events of when Hulk devastated her town, and then you're just following, like, it kind of starts off in this weird way where the Hulk can only come out at night. He's drawn to these gamma radiated characters and people, and he finds them and kind of absorbs them in a sense. And then seeing that, you're just like, okay, Hulk's scary now. That's kind of a fun thing to play with. But with that, it kind of grows into this larger picture. And it goes again to one of these amazing things that this book does, and that is take the world of the Hulk, and not even of the Hulk, but of gamma infected characters, and it just says, let's play with this. So even early on in this book, there's this sense like, we're going to use Sasquatch. We're going to use Titania and the Absorbing Man. We're going to use these really intense characters that are connected to this, like Rick Jones even, and just play with them a bit. I think what this book does to Walter Gronkowski is just amazing. Did I say Gronkowski? It might be Lankowski. I can't remember his name, but like, that is a character quintessentially you can't do much with because it's Sasquatch. He's a silly, goofy guy, but there's just the way Joe draws this guy is this creepy, lanky motherfucker who just looks so awkward and dumb, and you're just afraid of him and you don't like it. It's just so beautiful the way that works. And the Sasquatch stuff, I think, is really impactful for this book because it's like the last vestige of good when it comes to like people in Bruce's life. Like, this guy has respected Bruce, and he's like, I've been an advocate for him for years, and now you're seeing the fall that comes with respecting Bruce in that manner. So when this book starts, you're just like, okay, you're building a really interesting picture. We're seeing like the world expanding and doing all these weird stuff. And then as it goes on, it plays into this weird level of body horror where just seeing the Hulk transform looks like this broken, intense tentacle of a man just ripping himself apart, just like literally there's scenes where his heart's ripped out, where his chest is caved in, where his head is cut off. This broken creature that just binds itself back together in this twisted way. That is a great concept because the Hulk itself is pretty much this Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde allegory of this man and the monster coexisting in one being. So taking that and just like upping the ante to this like really dark, twisted horror makes sense to me. I think that is a very, very cool idea, and I'm so glad it's being portrayed here in a positive way. Like, that is just insane. And from that, you just go into this really insane direction that I don't think anybody would be expecting. Like, I kind of like was just reading it. I started, I think, like issue 20 was when I started like reading it monthly. So I kind of like read like the entire first couple issues. And then I think when you get to the point where we're introduced to the Green Door is where things start to click into place. Like, this is, Angels and Demons. This is like so fucked. And it's hard to explain the concept of the Green Door just because it is such a brilliant idea. So the Green Door is pretty much like this gateway in the afterlife, whatever that would be for the person, that anybody with gamma radiation in them can pass through it and be resurrected back into the land of the living, which I think is perfect. It kind of connects gamma radiation to one of like the major, elements of the universe, where it's this powerful energy that's kind of more like this power bestowed upon a person, but it's so like, defective and deranged that it breaks you mentally, physically, or emotionally in different ways. And I think that's really cool. So that's something that is there too. And just having like see how these characters come back, because it also deals with people like how Rick Jones returns, how Bruce returns, how I think Betty Ross returns too. And I think that's great. And one of the other things, there's just so much good about this book. One of the things that is just so cool is how Al Ewing just says, we're going to play with these characters that are intrinsically connected to Hulk. You know, Theodore Ross is not in this book that much. I think he's in a little bit, like some reference here and there. But Betty Ross, who we know has been Red She-Hulk before, she has Gamma in her, we say, no, we're going to mess her up a little bit, turn her into a harpy creature that is so grotesque at the beginning. And then as the story progresses, you feel like the relationship growing between her and one of the Hulks, and you're just like, what is going on? Like, that is just so cool. And the creature just looks great. The way Rick Jones kind of like gets absorbed into like this weird abomination looking creature, which then morphs into this like broken spinal cord looking grotesque being. My goodness. That is insane. It is just disgusting and twisted. And you're just like, is showing the side effects of the gamma radiation mutating these people and destroying them from within and from like this weird cosmic level of things. That is just so terrifying. And it all kind of connects back to this idea that I adore, where it comes back to Bruce's father being like this devilish figure, you know, in the one below all, that's just destroying and breaking the concept of the Green Door and all these people. And you're just, thank goodness you're doing something with Bruce's dad, because I think that's a key relationship in his life that makes Bruce who he is. And the fact that we're playing with that is fantastic. So one of the other key elements in this book is that we do this weird thing, which is the dissociative identity disorder, where there are a bunch of personalities in the Hulk. So there's kind of like a Hulk mindscape you can go into, where you see all the different versions of Hulk throughout time and space. And some of them are, you know, more modern creations like Devil Hulk. You know, there's the Planet Hulk one. There's the like Child Hulk. But I think the one that takes the most prominent kind of like halfway through the series is somebody who has been one of my favorite interpretations of Hulk, and that is Joe Fixit. It also does this thing where Joe Fixit can just be in Bruce's body, and that's more like, I guess it's kind of more like that's an identity, you know, like Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, that it is like a Hulk. But it's just like, that is really cool. And kind of when Bruce like gets taken out of his mind a little bit with whatever the hell's going on with him, you see that Joe takes over that persona. And I think that's really cool to see. Like, it's just like, I love Joe, and that's awesome. And just seeing some of the other like interpretations of the Hulk in the Hulkscape is great. Like, there's this weird one that's got like a bunch of scales on him. I think is that the Devil Hulk? I can't remember, but it just like, that looks great. You see like this broken Hulk who's a child who can barely talk in sentences. That's really cool to see. And then you kind of get to around issue 25 when I think the rest of the story lays itself out. So there's this issue dedicated to pretty much like the end of the world, at like the collapse of everything, and the last being standing are like Hulk. It's like Bruce Banner in this like decrepit body. He's like literally hovering over Mr. Immortal. Like, the thing that can't die has officially died, and I'm here, and all that's left is the Green Door and me. And then we see through that, looking through that like visage of like that issue, who the big bad is throughout everything. And it is so poetic because you're doing this story about Hulk that involves life and death, devils and angels, like literally destructive personalities inside yourself, grotesque monsters. Who do you get to be the big bad in a story like that? Of course, you have to get a Hulk villain who is so perfectly cast, perfectly created, the leader. And that book kind of sets up like, oh, this is the leader's doing. Everything from that point on forward is because of the leader. And, you know, I've said it before, I'm pretty sure. I think Samuel Stearns is a great villain. One of the strongest in Marvel who has never really had a good play in a long time. It goes back to that thing I kind of said at the beginning here. It's hard to get a Hulk book good because that character, he's kind of one note for the most part, where it's just like you smash, you do some big stuff. He's kind of smart, he's kind of dumb, and that can get very repetitive very fast. And the same can be said about Samuel Stearns, where it's just like, he's smart. What else do you do with that? But what I think is great right here, it becomes more a case of curiosity and showing like, I want to destroy everything this is about. I want this to stop. Look at this endless cycle of violence and destruction all of us gamma freaks have been involved with forever. This is destructive, it is harmful, and it breaks our world. We need to stop this. We have to end this insanity. Why does this keep happening? And I think that is absolutely brilliant and insane. and just makes for the perfect idea of brain versus brawn, just these two opposing forces throughout history just fighting each other, and that is so cool. So I do want to spend some time talking about the final issue just because I think it's so brilliant and perfect and creative and fun. But I also want to bring up a couple of like these small storylines that took place throughout the issue, throughout the story, I should say. There was one that I really enjoyed where it's kind of like, what if Bruce Banner became like a civil rights activist? Well, not civil rights. What if Bruce Banner became like a anti-corporation activist where he's like, this guy's bad. Roxxon is bad. We should take them down. Literally, you see like halfway through the book, he kind of just like slows down and then it's just like, now we're going to take down Roxxon. We're going to fight the big evil Monitor guy. I'm like, where did this come from? When did this book become anti-corporation so fast? And on that note too, that leads into one of my personal favorite side stories in the entire issue. That is this idea that Xemnu, who is I love Xemnu. I think that is such a cool design, a cool character, a cool idea. It's like, what if Xemnu was actually Hulk and that every story with the Hulk didn't actually happen and it was Xemnu just implanting these memories and just like, hey, remember when things were better? Remember when the 90s was cool and kids were happy and everything was great? I do. I remember when life was good without a Hulk, when I was Hulk. Remember me? I was Hulk. I'm Xemnu. I was Hulk. And that was so good. Such a good storyline. And it's like, this just came out of nowhere. Why is this happening? Why are we doing this kind of story in this book where we're just like, we just literally saw the end of the world. Hulk's looking in the green door, like the end of everything. The one above all is just standing there like, what do you think this is? And you just look and you're just like, oh, it's the leader who's doing all this. This idea is now implanted in him. And then it's like, evil corporation, take it down. It's a big change. And it just comes out of nowhere, but also doesn't come out of nowhere because it's very much the storyline. And I think it's great. There's also some appearances of other characters in the Marvel Universe. You know, we saw there's a great use of the Thing. And a great use of the Fantastic Four towards the end of the book where they use the Forever Gate, which I think is a cool concept. But the Thing gets some play in here. He kind of just shows up like, I kind of got history with this guy. Let me just see what I can do to talk him down. And it kind of works, kind of doesn't. Either way, it's brilliant and very cool. Such a fun use of him. The Avengers do get some play. Kind of a reference to Hawkeye earlier on where you just see Hulk is just like, okay, I know what you did and I'm watching you, Clint. It's great. It's just fantastic. This book also forms a new team in the Marvel Universe called Gamma Flight, which is great because, look, I love Sasquatch, but you know who I love more than Sasquatch? I love Puck. And Puck gets some play in here, literally just being the guy's like, look, you really messed up my boy Walter. I'm going to do my best to stop you from being a freak. So he teams up with Titania and Absorbing Man and like Leonard Samson, and it's just like this weird book. And just becomes like this weird obsessive thing. And I just adore it so much because it's just insanity personified and does all this weird stuff. And again, there's just something about this book that you're reading it and you're just thinking to yourself, there's nothing else like this. It is so rare. It is so unique. It is so instinctively itself that nothing can come close to this magic. It even just looks like a book from the Vertigo era where it's just those beautiful colors and that design, and it's so perfect. You know, every book kind of opens up or ends with like a quote from a famous person in history or a Bible verse, which adds to that level of like, this is saying something special. This is poetry. It's art being made in front of us. And it's just gorgeous to see. So I do want to spend some time, like I said, talking about the finale because I think it was 90 pages and my goodness, was it great. So the final issue kind of culminates in this big battle of like this twisted version of the leader, but it also kind of goes into like, there is something bigger beyond here that is causing all of this nonsense to happen. And basically, well, it's going back and forth between this story in like, I think the previous generations where we see a Stern and a Banner fighting each other and how it like betrays a wife becomes like who becomes who in what situation, showing that the Banners and the Sterns have always been at each other's throats since the beginning of their friendship. It also culminates into this thing where it's like, we're following one of the smartest versions of the Hulk, and he's just walking through this mindscape, trying to figure out what it all means. Like, they're just going on this adventure through, like, the End Realm, and he's just like, what are we supposed to do? Why were we made? And it's him, it's the Scareder Hulk, which is the child Hulk, and it's the new character that Al Ewing created. They're walking through this. They defeated the leader, which is a great just body horror where every scene where the leader just gets huge and disgusting, just breaking the spines and body apart of a banner. It's insanely cool and intense. And it just culminates in this, I just freaking love this ending, where these Hulks are just looking at this one thing above everything, and you're just like, what is this? And we see in this final issue that the concept of the God amongst God in the Marvel Universe, the one above all, has a Hulk. And you're like, oh my God, that is brilliant. And then you just see that the Hulk, like one of the Hulks is just like, why are we here? Why do we suffer all the time? What is the point of any of this? Why are we these broken people who can't win, who just lose and get affected by everything? What is our life? What is our purpose? Why do we do this? Why do we have to fight? And the one above all is just like, because you do. It's just so perfectly this book. You know, this book, pretty much from the get-go, it started off small, but then it was just like, we're telling a story. We are doing some artistry here. We're building up this idea that a Hulk will always be a Hulk. It is like a force in the universe. Gamma is a force in the universe that will affect people in different ways. It'll give them body dysmorphia and break them down and destroy them and mutate them and affect them in these disturbing, disgusting, pivotal moments. And even their God, the one who created them, their God of gamma radiation, the one above all for Hulks, is just like, you have to exist, and you do exist. And I'm just like, whoa, okay. Who the hell let Neil Gaiman write this? And of course, Al Ewing fits right in that category of like the quiet British guy who's just like, I'm going to tell a story about gods and demons through the visage of Hulk. Of course he'd do that. Because why wouldn't you? And you're just reading this and you're just going, this has never been done before. I think this is probably one of the most prestigious Marvel comics, where it's just like this precise story that represents the best of Marvel, where it's taking a character and exploring ideas with them. And it's not even like every issue is a winner. Some issues are kind of, weaker, better than other ones. But every story arc just feels authentically good. It feels like it works for the tone of the story. When it goes to like those hardcore, intense, existential places, it feels authentic. It feels great. And when it goes to these quiet moments where it's just like, Joe Fixit having a conversation with Ben Grimm, it still works. And you're like, this is cool. I don't think Hulk could ever meet these standards again. Donny Cates is a great writer, and I know he'll do something special with the Hulk, but this is one of those rare occasions in comics where everything just culminated into the perfect storm. It was the perfect time to release this book. It was the perfect era of Hulk to release this book. It was the perfect time to get experimental because we needed it. We needed Hulk to have meaning. We needed to have this idea that his father was this demon on his shoulder pushing him to do these dark things. We needed this idea that these gamma infected people had some kinship and connection. We needed like this weird ethereal version of Hulk being like, we are destined to be destroyers of Earth. So that's why we exist. It's just insane. And it shouldn't work, but it just does. And it looks beautiful, and it's beautifully written, and it plays with characters from Hulk stories time and time again. And everything about it just happens to hit in the perfect setting. This book is fun. This book is brilliant, and there is never going to be anything like it again at Marvel. I wish it was the case where we could see more stuff like this, but you can't do it again. Nothing about this would ever work again, honestly, because it was the perfect storm. Everything came together perfectly. We had a point where he needed to do this. Then we said, let's take the leader and make him scary. How do you make another story with the leader after this? How do you do anything with Joe Fixit after this? And it's kind of just like they take a backseat so Bruce can become who he is again. But how do you do anything after this? You can't. You literally saw this is the last Hulk story. It's just, he learns his purpose. We learn why there's this destructive personality trait inside him, why Bruce Banner was broken, and why his insecurities affected all of Gamma people. We learn what happens to Betty, and to Rick, and to Walter, and to Doc Samson, and to Gamma Flight, and all of it just worked. And it made sense, and it became this beautiful piece of poetry that just can't be beat. And I just want to say, like, it's worth reading. If you have been hesitant at this point to read it, you should, because it's different. It is brilliantly crafted. It is watching mastery at work, where you're just seeing these beautiful panels just drawn in gorgeous ways of the disgusting horror and broken bodies, but it's also just like following this man whose entire life has been this crusade of destructive, chaotic good, and how his purpose is this broken, humiliated thing, and then it takes some back seats when we're just doing like, we'll have some fun over here, we'll do some story over there, but overall, we're just having, the battle between a Banner and a Stern, which has been the case throughout history, and these two souls have hated each other for decades upon centuries. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's just so rare that a Marvel comic just makes me think, this is Preacher level good. This is Sandman level good. It's the most prestigious book Marvel has ever made, and I will stand by that proclamation until otherwise proven. Immortal Hulk, this story about Bruce Banner's undying way to come back to life, which you think is going to be this horror story about a man who can come out at night and kills gamma creatures, morphs into a battle for the literal soul of the Hulk when he meets his god. It is insanely powerful, insanely good. It makes Al Ewing one of the best writers working today, and I recommend checking it out. I don't have any recommendations to end this episode of the GeekWave with. All I can say is, you'll never see a story like this in live action because it is just so beautifully done. Marvel would never take the chance to do this kind of thing, because it's the kind of magic only a comic book can give you. Having the entire knowledge of Hulk and his world and his characters, this is the way that it works. You have a bunch of different type of Hulks in his mind. You have a bunch of different type of characters in his mind. This is how you do a Hulk story. This is how you do the best Hulk story. And this is why Immortal Hulk is just worth exploring and talking about. I have no doubt in my mind, at some point we will come back to talk about this book in some capacity. Until then, this is going to be the most thorough retrospective I do. I'm just going to say it, man. It's the best Hulk book ever, because it's just only works from everything that comes off of it. And it gives so much more depth to the world that has been falling apart for quite some time. So please check out this Immortal Hulk run. It is so good. It is 50 issues long, and they all tell a precise, interesting story. And just explore this world in all of its beauty, because that's what it is. It's beautiful, it's insane, it's the Hulk, and it's incredible. So that is going to do it for this episode of the GeekWave. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, please give us a rating over there. Of course, if you have any ideas for some topics or discussions you'd like to see me have, email me or leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys are interested in. And as always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I will catch you guys in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck. Hulk smash.